Hello out there, digital makers. It's Wednesday, and so that means it's time for digital making at home. This week's episode is an awesome one. If you haven't already, say hi in the chat and let us know where in the world you are. I'm Mr C, and I'm coming to you live from Cambridge in the UK. Back with us once again is the irreplaceable Christina.
Hi everyone, I'm joining from Nebraska in the USA, and thank you to everyone all over the world joining us once again for another great episode of Digital Making at Home. Great to see you, Mr. C.
Hey, how you doing?
Now, we already have lots of people in the chat early today, which is super exciting. Hello, Gubrick. Hello, Andrew, John. Hello from Canada. We have Charisse in Texas and CFP in Germany. Oh, this is incredible. Welcome, welcome. Great to see you all getting involved. Yeah. Today, we're talking about art and design. We've got Debra as our special guest today to talk about physical computing, making art with technology in CAD, or computer-aided design. We'll also be working through a really fun project making infinite fairy-like creatures with LEDs and acrylic. We'll hear more about her in a bit.
Maker after my own heart. I love a bit of CAD from time to time. In fact, I'm whipping up a camera mount for the homemade Wi-Fi baby cam I've been making over the last few weeks.
No, wait, can we have a look?
Yep, yeah. So I'm tinkering.
Don't mean to put you on the spot there, but I'm sure you've got it ready. I knew you would. I knew you would.
Tinkering a file from Thingiverse, but it's got like the little bit here for the camera, and you can see like the back mount with like cooling fins and stuff in the back, or cooling ports. Sorry, and then the mount here, which is the next bit to tinker, will be to make it fit exactly around the leg of the crib. I'm going to make like a square clamp, and then I could just mount that in the baby's room. Yeah.
Oh, I think I heard her in the background a couple of seconds ago. She approves.
She does, yeah. She loves it. And for those of you who are with us for the first time this week, welcome. Digital Making at Home is all about getting young people to bring their imaginations to life by learning to create things with technology. Every Wednesday, we make cool gadgets together. We see amazing digital making projects from young people worldwide, and we chat with incredible inventors and makers from all over the globe.
And we love having all of you here with us each week making cool stuff. We broadcast every episode live to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Your comments come through live to us on those platforms, and we love hearing from you each week during the show. Feel free to jump in, ask questions. I'm seeing Argentina, Massachusetts. Hello, Mauricio. Hello, Blitz. Hello, Gianluca from Italy. Hello, Korea, Rob in Korea. This is amazing.
So yeah,
Patty,
so good.
John.
So many people coming in. And we get all of your messages, everybody, and we love having your input. If you haven't been shouted out yet, please don't give up. Just keep asking us good questions and sharing your stories with us in the chat. And make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. It really does help us out. Or head to rpf.io/sub, and you'll get all of our content fresh off the press. When you subscribe, you'll be the first to know when we go live.
Yes, subscribe. When you subscribe, you join an incredible global community. And I mean it. Like I said, we're seeing countries from all over the world represented in the chat today. We're a community of digital makers, educators, and explorers coming together to change the world with digital making. Subscribe and join the adventure today.
Yeah, so should we bring Debra on now and have a chat with her?
Yes, let's bring her on. Debra, you there?
Hi, Chris. Hi, Christina. Hi, Mr. C. Thank you for having me.
Oh, great to have you here. Let's get started. Can you tell us about what sort of, we can see them, what sort of things do you make?
Well, I make projects these days. Almost all of them have LEDs. The one thing they all have, even if they don't have LEDs, is kind of a microcontroller or some kind of method of kind of programming or making it changeable, because although actually I suppose some things just have a little LED with a built-in microcontroller. But I love LEDs. I love the way light makes things look, and I found that they work in all kinds of different projects. So I really enjoy using them in my projects.
Yeah, it's incredible. I am just in awe right now of your background. Okay. Let's get like a close-up of that. Super cool. Pick one of those projects for us and tell us what it is, please.
Well, I got started actually in making. I don't have a background in electronics at all. I mean, I'm self-taught. I have a science background, but I didn't know much about electronics. And I started with wearables, and that got me hooked on projects with electronics and LEDs, and I've really stuck with it. So a lot of my projects are wearables, which I really enjoy because you can build something and you take it out, and wherever you go, you can have people, you can show it to people, like, my headband. Some of these are fairly straightforward and simple. This is a simple LED necklace that's edge lit that I wrote up for my blog that, if you can have access to a laser cutter to get the parts is easy to make. Some are harder. let's get my directions right. This is one of my first like really big wearable projects. It took a couple months. I actually sewed. I decided I wanted to make a dress that kind of spread the light around. I just kind of started experimenting with fiber optics, and where in some cases I found off the rack garments that you can just add a few LEDs to and they look nice. I designed and actually sewed this from scratch modifying an existing pattern with bands to hold the LEDs, and there's channels sewn down the sides to hold strips of LEDs controlled by this Adafruit Circuit Playground. And actually, you can change Circuit Playground Express. You can change the design by clicking a button on the pattern, clicking a button on the controller. And it was a lot of fun to wear. I made it for a Halloween party, but I'm hoping LED wearables become more popular so I can start wearing these and more closer to everyday life too. So that was a big project. And of course you need accessories with your dress, like this handbag. You see a few purses, and you can do, that's the great thing about LED wearables. You can go simple, this hat, I actually made a video on how to make it. It's actually relatively easy to make, or, you can really glam it up with fiber optics.
You mentioned, I'm hoping LED fashion also comes. it's a start. I think people will definitely feel it out post pandemic as we're returning to our social lives. And fingers crossed, I'll wear it. I'll definitely do.
Well, the nice thing about LED fashion is that you don't have to be that close to appreciate it. So I think nobody's going to see your little logo, but people are going to see you with your LED handbag from a long way away, and they can appreciate it. So there's that aspect.
Yeah. You've told us previously that you're not the most artistic person in the world, yet what we see behind you, it's really creative and really beautiful. What tools do you use to create these cool projects?
Thank you. Yeah, growing up, I was always really frustrated because I had these great ideas in my mind and I could never, I'd draw them, I'd cut out paper, tape things together, and they never looked exactly like the vision I had in my mind. And it all really changed when I discovered CAD, computer-aided design, which lets you use a computer to specify the parameters, the size, the connections, the angles, everything exactly, and then use a tool run by a computer like a vinyl cutter or a laser cutter or a 3D printer to create exactly the thing you designed. People make mistakes. Computers tend not to, although some 3D prints get a little funny sometimes. But I particularly appreciated seeing Mr. C's Tinkercad program, because you don't need a lot of experience or even a really fancy program. You don't need to spend any money. A lot of these programs are free. I use Tinkercad all the time. It's really good for modeling small parts. And I've used it to, what I'll do for the infinity mirror, infinity octahedron behind me, I actually used a 2D CAD program, a free one called Inkscape, to model these, to model the sides of it. And then I actually imported into Tinkercad, made them into 3D pieces, and it was super easy to rotate the pieces and visualize how they would all fit together in 3D. And all that's with free software. So what CAD does is it lets you be precise and lets you be repeatable. So if it doesn't quite work the first time, you can make small tweaks and do something very similar. There are many kinds of CAD programs, 2D, 3D, and so many free ones that really anybody can get started with.
Absolutely, yeah. Both of those are really great options as well. I really love Tinkercad, like for 3D. I've been teaching with it for years and years. Like I love that. It's so intuitive, the interface. So good. And then Inkscape is another free one that I teach lots of the people at the foundation on using the laser. When we have the laser in the workshop, Christina, we use Inkscape for that to make a lot of really great 2D stuff. And I love how you document everything that you do on the blog. Like on Geek Mom Projects, your blog is incredible. How did you decide to start blogging about all the things you do?
Thank you very much. You hit a bit of a sore point because I saw Becky Stern on your live stream a couple weeks ago, and she's wonderful at documenting. And I feel like I sometimes miss some of the projects I do, but I do make a point that if I do a project I think others will want to do, of absolutely documenting that step by step. And the reason I got started writing up my blog is that when I started learning, I knew a bit about computer programming, but nothing about making. And when I started creating projects, I read other people's blogs and built the projects I saw there. And I started by working my way through projects other people had built, and if I could get them to look like what they had done, I learned a lot from doing it. So I wanted to then, when I started creating more original projects, kind of give back and let other people, learn from what I've figured out. There's, the wonderful online community of makers, lets you learn from what other people do and then build upon that. And it's encouraged and really, really celebrated. There's nothing I like more than having somebody make one of my projects and come back to show me how they've improved upon it. It's wonderful.
And you volunteer with code clubs and run online workshops. Like, what inspired you to get involved as a volunteer, and what kind of things do you teach kids?
Well, I came into, making with a coding background, but not much of an electronics background. And I had been at home, kind of with my kids for a while. As they got older, needed me less. I stumbled into this wonderful Los Angeles organization called PS Science that brings science to underserved elementary schools. And honestly, I first just heard about it and thought, wow, this is neat. I just like what you're doing. And when they mentioned they were looking to add a coding component to their program, I said, well, I know how to code. I haven't done formal teaching, but I've certainly worked with my kids. And it was a really wonderful synergy because I love coding. I love the things you can do with it. And, you can to have something that I love actually be beneficial to somebody else, because these are kids at schools. A lot of, teachers are a little nervous to start coding and, start experimenting. Whereas kids, by the way, learn it so well because they're not afraid to try anything, which is wonderful. You're not going to break it. It's okay. It's pretty sturdy. The microbit is the platform we use for teaching much of the coding, as well as some other online tools. And it's a fun, I really, really felt very lucky that something I love so much is good for other people and they enjoy learning it. So I do it because I like it. It's a bonus that it's good for other people to have that opportunity too.
That charms with me a lot. Like, I was really lucky that my parents let me sort of like break stuff and play with stuff. My dad was always very supportive. My mum as well, encouraging about trying to make things, and he always taught me the right way to do it, and then just sort of let me go. And I ended up making like a bunch of wild projects when I was a kid, like things for school things. I like a working flamethrower when I was 12 and submitted that to my teacher. And my dad was like, yeah, we can make that. Like, that sort of thing is no problem. Like, it's totally doable. The physics is this. And so, I love that whole thing. But what is the most daunting project you've ever tackled, and what inspired you to do that?
But probably the biggest challenge I encountered, and the project I had to learn the most new skills and ideas for, happened early on because, just briefly, I kind of got involved in by teaching my son's Lego robotics team, and I'd been working with like the kids in the Lego robots, and of course it was up to them to do the build, but I was really fascinated by it. And it was a lot of fun. And when I saw how many you could make, these Lego robots do amazing things, including self-balancing, and I was fascinated by that. And went online to learn a bit more about self-balancing robots, and saw that people had built their own full-sized self-balancing kind of Segway-style robots. And I said, wait a second, all these people can do it. Maybe I can. And it took me a good kind of 6 months, maybe a few more. I had to learn there it is. Yeah, that's my, which son is that? That's my middle son. It was quite a few years back. Testing it's good to have test subjects too.
Yes. With safety equipment. I see the helmet.
Yes, that's important. But yeah, that is actually my youngest son, Zachary, right there. And I learned to weld, for example. I had the idea of what I'd need to do. I knew you needed a frame. I knew you needed motors. I knew you needed a controller. And I kind of built it step by step. It was my first real foray into CAD because the design of the frame was really important for it to be sturdy. And I modeled it in SketchUp, actually, I think. And in my welding classes, learned, how to cut and weld metal bars together. And kind of shockingly to me, it worked. Things went wrong. All kinds of things went wrong. I blew out an expensive motor controller at some point by hooking it backwards. But I knew it was possible, and it was so exciting when the first time it worked. Really exciting.
I love how you said surprisingly, right? That's always an event. It worked. Oh, I don't know how, but it worked. I did it. Well, let's do some project making today. You're going to show us how to make something, right?
Yes, I have been doing a lot of work. I've been really enjoying working with LED strings. Like, actually, this guy is my LED string creature because they're so flexible and let you take hooked together LEDs and move them into different shapes, and LED mirrors like this infinity octahedron behind me. And I was playing with, you know, a smaller version of LED strings, these fairy lights that you can get very inexpensively, and trying to see, could I do an infinity mirror with fairy light strings that would be accessible to everybody? And this was the project I came up with. I was so delighted to be able to create something that I thought somebody else would use. So the trick to using these strings, as you'll see, is that you have a lot of extra wire, but it turns out you can do something fun with the wire and help make it into features for your creature as you build it.
Yay. And you were so kind, you were kind enough to send me some. So I'm going to be making along with you. I'm so excited. And we have your desk cam set up so we can follow along.
Okay, great. I'm glad you can see everything I've got here. So this is written up on my blog step by step, but just to briefly introduce the parts we'll need. So you need a strand of fairy lights. The spacing is important. Some fairy lights have 10 centimeter spacing. These have some fairy lights have 5 centimeter spacing. I think these have 10. Which one is, okay, what am I looking at here? Yeah. These are the 10 centimeter. I laser cut 2 pieces of EVA foam, which is a wonderful material for crafts. Even if you don't have a laser cutter, it's really flexible and bendable. And you can get, 1/2 has an adhesive backing, which is going to help stick the lights down, and 1/2 doesn't. I've laser cut 2 pieces of, this is partially mirrored acrylic, so you can see that you can actually see through it, while at the same time it still has a reflection in it. You can see that, you know, the reflection of the light as I move it around. And some bits and pieces for decoration, googly eyes and brads to hold it together, and we can create a really nice looking fairy light creature from all these parts. So shall we get started?
Yes, please.
Okay, so to begin, to make an interesting infinity mirror, what it is an infinity mirror has 2 reflective surfaces, you know, facing each other, and the items in between get reflected infinitely deep. And LEDs reflect very, very well in particular, which is why you see so many infinity mirrors with lots and lots of LEDs in them. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the LEDs inside the inner layer of the EVA foam, and start by taking the EVA foam with the adhesive backing, the adhesive piece, and it has a body and a head. It's kind of, so it doesn't stick to you. It's easiest to leave the head backing on and peel off the body. And what you can see, if you look closely at the EVA foam, is it has these notches around the side, cut into the interior circumference of the piece. We're going to put an LED in each of the notches and let the wiring hang around the outside. You can do this with the LEDs on or off. I find it easier to kind of see where they are with the LEDs on. So the trick is you take the wire and bend it so the LED kind of points inward and the wire points outward, and you just kind of drop it onto the foam. Actually, I'm going to turn this around. I've got it facing the wrong way. In one of the 2 notches just below the head, so that the light is visible inside and the wire hangs outside. And then you just go around the circumference of the body here and bend the wire around each LED and just place each LED inside one of the notches. And that's all. And you don't have to worry about how neat the wire looks yet. You'll be able to fix all that later. All that's important is that you go around. You can hopefully see what I'm doing here. Go around the circle.
You can definitely see it.
Perfect. Placing an LED in each notch. Oh, and okay. You'll need about 11 of them, so probably a good idea to unwind about 11 of them before you get started, but I should be able to unwind as I go. And so we just keep going around the circle here. And what's nice, this is fun because I've got different color LEDs, but you can do it with an LED strand that's all the same color, which makes a nice effect too. And all these wires look kind of messy, but the fun thing is once we assemble the whole project, we're going to be able to bend the wires into wings or legs or kind of whatever you want for your bug. Or it could be petals for a flower, or you can really kind of use your own imagination. And if you are good at CAD, by the way, there's no absolute reason that this little tangle here, that this fairy light creature has to have a circular body. You could make it a heart. You could make it kind of anything you want. This design is absolutely adaptable.
How did you come up with this idea, like for this project?
I was really looking to see if I could, because I was having so much fun with infinity mirrors. It became my goal to see, can I make one that we could turn into a kid's project? Because the PS Science runs a summer camp, and we get to do fun in person. When we do it in person, which I hopefully will be this summer, we get to do fun crafts. And I really wanted to let the kids make their own infinity mirrors. And it took a while. So knowing these, I've done projects with LED strands before, fairy light strands. And it just took a little experimenting to figure out how could they work into an infinity mirror. So it was really me sitting in a room with EVA foam scissors, twisting wire until I kind of like, wow, bingo, it came to me. And sometimes that's the way it works, and sometimes it's more thinking. But this was more of a play with my hands until it works kind of project. Okay, so once you have each notch filled with an LED, you can peel off the paper protecting kind of the head part of the sticky foam and just run that last bit of wire right up through the center between these two notches here. And then, so it doesn't stick to you anymore, we're going to complete the middle layer. Hopefully I'm not going too fast here, with the non-sticky piece of EVA foam. And the trick is to really just press it down over the first so that each of these four rectangular holes line up with the ones in the bottom layer. And if you do it, it doesn't have to be exact, but it should be pretty close because we're going to want to run the fasteners through those holes. And if the wires get in the way,
that's great, Christina.
I'm doing it.
Awesome.
Oh, look at you! That is
So
great. You're
cool.
doing this better. You could teach this better.
No, you do. I'm learning. This is all you. And
That's great.
I was just, and you had mentioned, I'm just so impressed with. I loved how you shared, like, for you, it was just really like just playing with your hands. Because what's neat is just the details that you put into it, right? Like all of it just fits together so well, from the spaces, like the not spaces where you can put the lights, from the spaces where we're going to put the little clamps. Like it's really cool and such a neat kids project. I'm able to do it, so it's a great kids project.
I'm sure you could do many more difficult projects, but it is nice. I get really happy when I find a project that others can do. So the next step is to put the mirrored layers on. Now, one thing about partially mirrored acrylic is it has the mirrored coating on one side, and it's best if that's on the inside, so it's less likely to get scratched. A quick tip is if you put an object on the surface, you can tell which the mirrored surface is because it appears to be. It's a little hard under the project cam. The reflection appears right up against the object on the mirrored side, and appears to be kind of below the object on the acrylic side. Because that's a good trick to figure out which the mirrored surface is. So once you've got your middle layer sandwiched together, take your acrylic layers with the mirrored surface facing the interior, and you'll want to use these brads that will hold all the layers together. Probably easiest to start with one, and put a brad through the acrylic layer. Then I'm going to have to get a little bit closer here to do this. Push it through one of the slots in the bug body. And then if you can you might want to bend it just a little so it stays, but not so much you can't put the top layer on. And fill in the other four slots with brads, and then put the top mirrored layer on top of all that, which, there you go. It can take a little pushing, but everything's pretty flexible, so it works pretty well. I find probably putting the bottom two brads in and then putting the mirrored layer on top kind of aligns everything reasonably well. And then if you leave it just a little, if you bend the brads out, these will stay. Bend the ends of the brads out, and then put the last two brads in. You have a little bit of wiggle room to make everything align and go through. So if you stick the brads through and then bend them, they will hold everything together. And by the way, it's purely an aesthetic choice as to which direction the brads go through. All right. So hopefully we're doing okay for time here. But once you bend all the brads together, you'll notice, this is the best part, actually.
This moment right here, it's beautiful.
I contain infinities, right? You have created this infinite object. You started with this very small, finite little piece of, pieces of acrylic, and you've put together something here I love that's infinitely deep. And if you twist it, you can really see, they appear to go on forever. That's what's so nice about this project. The effect is just lovely and mesmerizing, really.
We've got quite a few people in the chat who are saying how amazing it is. We've got like Kevin over here saying that it's fun and cute, brilliant execution. And Adri was asking earlier about where we can get links for things, and we just said to go straight to geekmomprojects.com and to get all of the links for all of these sorts of projects and things like that, everybody, just so you know. But yeah, lots of love in the chat for it. We've got Otto Navarro shouting out. We've got Adri, Tomonska, everyone. Like, it's just an amazing project. So make sure you do check out the blog, everybody. Go across to geekmomprojects.com and check them all out. And Debra, where do you get your inspiration from for all of this crazy stuff? Because it's so cool. It's like a Wonka factory of LEDs.
Thank you. Exactly.
You know, I get most of my inspiration from what other people do, I have to say. I see something, and a lot of my inspiration, it's not like, I never set out to make anything. Most of it originates from me seeing something, say, I wonder if, like, I've seen this LED cube. I wonder if I could make one that didn't have a frame. Or I've seen, you know, I've learned about, like, I've seen these LED strings are so flexible. What if we could, I wonder if we could use them in projects that use regular strings. And that's how I came up with these LED string art ideas. You know, it's nice to have actually not a technical background, you know, having worked with kids. You know, I look at the strings and I don't immediately think, oh, Christmas ornaments or functional LEDs. I think, oh, it's a string. I've done string art. And you start to put crafts together from different areas of your brain, which is, you know, and a lot of things fail. All my projects start out with, I wonder if, and sometimes yes, and sometimes no, but I've always learned something. And the best ones come out from ideas like I had no idea whether or not they'd succeed. Those are always the best ones. And yeah, it's always a thrill when they do. And like I said, even when they don't, it's always something I've learned. And, you know, sometimes I can adapt off of that to make something new that I hadn't even thought of when I started. So,
advice? Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got some googly eyes, right? We need to add those.
I'm going to go ahead. The rest of it's is decorative, but yes, you have to have googly eyes or it doesn't have character. But yes, what advice? Sorry.
I was going to ask, what advice would you give a young person who has an idea and who doesn't know where to start, like how to make it real?
That is a really good question. I think the first place to start is if it's a really big idea and it feels overwhelming, is to try to break it into parts. I know when I looked at the Segway, I said, well, wait a second. I've worked with robots. I know how to program them. And there's going to be a motor. I'm going to need to find a motor. And wait a second. And there's a mechanical part with the wheels and how it's going to roll. So all those things. So I can look at those one at a time. And then you try to figure out the skills. I find kind of experimenting with the different parts is a great way to get started. I do think if it's a really big project, you want to plan it out as best you can before putting it all together. So, but when you start with the parts, experiment, play around, really try to learn it. You'll learn new skills that you'll find apply to other areas of your life. So, you know, you might, depending on what it is, you definitely want to break it down. Don't get discouraged. Look for what other people have written. And, you know, what's nice too is people sometimes email me off my blog asking questions about projects that I've done. And if it's genuinely they're trying to do something, I'm super happy to answer. You'd be surprised at how many people put information out there who are really, really happy to share their work with you. And because they're super happy you've seen it and liked it. So there are people who will be able to help you. And, you know, blogs, people who write their stuff up in blogs are frequently really happy to answer questions you have. It's worth it.
What sort of, like, if someone wanted to get started making things with LEDs and producing like amazing things like you have in the background there behind you, what would be the basic starter kit you would recommend they get hold of?
Well, that has changed. I have to say, it all started for me. If you actually go back to the very beginning of my blog with sewable conductive thread and, you know, those little LEDs you sew on. And that was really how I got started. And it's still not a bad way to go. Especially if you're not used to soldering, if you're not used to wiring. It's a great way to get started without kind of that complicating factor. You know, if you're comfortable with soldering, and things like that, you can go to like blogs. I always recommend people who want to learn, go to the Adafruit Learn Guides, because they have wonderful hands-on physical computing built electronic projects with step-by-step documentation for how to do everything. In fact, I forgot, I wrote this up for them. I didn't turn this on. It's an infinity mirror. It's an infinity mirror cuff neck. Collar, basic collar necklace. And, you know, I wrote it up for them using some of their parts and step-by-step instructions. So, you know, I start with something at your level and basically just start working on more complex projects. But I really find building existing projects that we'll know if you've got it right is a great way to kind of gain the skills to then you learn what you can improvise on.
Absolutely. And one last question before we go. Is there such a thing as too many LEDs?
Well, I'd like to say no. I think that at the point where you burn a fuse out in your house, maybe it's too many on at one time. But no, really no.
Awesome. Debra, thanks so much for being here. Don't forget to check out Debra's blog, everybody, at geekmomprojects.com for more awesome projects. Catch you later, Debra. Thanks for coming on.
Bye, Debra.
Oh, amazing. So
wow,
cool.
I love chatting with Debra and making the infinite fairy creature. Look, here's mine. Look how cute
That's so
it
cool.
is.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's super
so
cute.
fun and so easy. Like the affinity effect that we were talking about, you get from 2 slightly mirrored pieces. That's amazing. I'd never done that before, so it's so cool.
It's really cool. No, and it was inspiring hearing about all the awesome stuff she does in community, teaching computer science to young people too. Like being able to share your passion for making is like a really big part for me, I think, and for loads of people of being in our community. And that's why, I miss being in a real classroom making cool stuff, but I feel privileged to have sort of our audience here every week that we can talk to and make stuff and share our passion with. And I'm really excited for Cool's projects this year.
Right, for folks at home, if you create an awesome project like an infinity fairy light creature, I just dropped something, or if a project with a microbit, a Raspberry Pi, Scratch, HTML, Python, robots, you can enter it into Coolest Projects. Coolest Projects is one of our amazing programs where young people all over the world can showcase what they made with code. The 2021 showcase is now open, so you can see what kids have already submitted, and you can submit a project today. You can go to coolestprojects.org for more information.
Absolutely. And it was great to see so many of our community getting involved this week in the chat. There were loads of great questions. Shout outs to Ali. Again, nice to see you, mate. Kevin, John, Nico, all those people who are bringing all their best game for the contributions to the discussion. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Debra, for coming on to chat with us.
Yeah, that's all we have time for this week, but you could always get in touch with us. Send us an email at dmah@raspberrypi.org to ask us a question, show us something cool you've made. If you're working on a project and you want to share it with us, send a picture of it to us at raspberry_pi.
Definitely. And before you go, make sure to like and subscribe so that you are the first to know when we go live, and you'll get updates on all the other great content on our channel as we release it. Like, we're all about supporting young makers all over the globe with fresh new stuff each week. So please don't miss out. Subscribe. Thank you all for being here for the Raspberry Pi Foundation's Digital Making at Home live stream. We'll be back again same time next week with more digital making. Until then, stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you next time. Bye, Christina.